The Starship will hit the record-breaking headline when it finally lifts its fully stacked self, with 33 Raptor engines firing up aggressively to ascend the gigantic fish-like space-sailing ship to the moon. One of the biggest NASA dreams will come to reality so that their astronauts will again land back on the moon to carry out space research and exploration. And this time, when NASA gets back to the moon, there will be no going back, as the planet will be a stepping stone for human colonization in space and also change everything about the vast area humans will be able to dominate in the universe. What did Elon Musk felt with the new loading of the launch pad with subsequent testing? Let's find out. A Crew Dragon spacecraft was docked to the International Space Station, which will remain until it returns 4 astronauts to Earth in February 2023. The Cargo Dragon Crew spacecraft is currently free-flying in space approximately 400 kilometers, or about 250 miles above the Earth's surface. When the Crew Dragon fires up to space, Elon Musk worshippers will have to flock to Texas to feed their eyes on the aggressive rocket, blasting huge flames beneath it to reach the required force that will overcome gravitational pull and head to the ISS. For instance, Anthony Gomez watched a projector when one of SpaceX's Starship prototypes took off for the first time. He was a long way from the humid Texas coast, where the launch was happening, because he had to spend some time with his girlfriend at his house in Florida. Anthony put a picture of the Starship rocket as it finds its way into the sky on the wall of his house so he can watch it. When the Dragon reached an altitude of about 41,000 feet, all 3 of its Raptor engines stopped working. The huge steel ship began to fall back to Earth, tipped over on its side so that it looked like a grain silo in freefall. Just before it got to the landing pad, its engine started up again, and the vehicle quickly turned back over as it got ready to land. But the Starship fell too fast. One of the voyages planted an unexplained joy in Anthony's heart, and as fate may have it, many SpaceX families will be overexcited to know that SpaceX is breaking ground and succeeding every day. A SpaceX staff, Nicole Mann, didn't know when she was excited about hearing about the Dragon rocket's success docking on the ISS. Woohoo! Station copies. Nice work, Dragon team in Houston. We appreciate it, she exclaimed after being informed the spacecraft had left the ISS to keep out Spear after undocking Mann, a member of Crew 5, and release of 68 on board had closed the hatch on Dragon, which had landed at the station on November 27th. SpaceX Dragon cargo ship was released from the station and expected to return to Earth loaded with massive tons of scientific equipment for analysis. NASA and SpaceX plan to land a splashdown Dragon off the coast of Florida, either in the Atlantic Ocean or the Gulf of Mexico. It will bring back about 4,400 pounds of supplies and experiments, which will be taken to the Space Station Processing Facility at Kennedy Space Center after landing. However, Texas SpaceX has already stacked Starship 24 atop the Super Heavy Booster 7 as they prepare for what would be the first orbital flight for a massive rocket measuring 120 meters tall from the tip of the Starship to the booster tail. The fully stacked rocket is no doubt the largest ever assembled compared to the Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy rocket. The company is hellbent on fully reused the Starship, while the Falcon family, which expands its orbital upper stage, is roughly 80% reusable. Also, keep in mind that the reason for SpaceX to optimize the Starship for reusability isn't just to reduce cost, but to keep a consistent operation with deep space travel and tourism, as many people will want to experience what it feels like to travel through space inside the Starship. So the traffic will be much more when SpaceX finally assures the public of a realistic percentage of human safety traveling inside the Starship, just as in the case of commercial aircraft. If SpaceX can reach its technical goals, Starship could eventually cost a lot less to launch than Falcon, while carrying 50 to 20 times more payload per launch. In short, it could change how much it costs to get to orbit, especially if it could be refueled in orbit and propellant could be moved from one Starship to another. Starships could perform much better than the Falcon 9 or the Falcon Heavy. SpaceX was also busy at its second Florida launch site, preparing the Falcon Heavy at KSC's launch pad 39B. The heavy lift rocket, which can produce 5.1 million pounds of thrust at launch, left the hangar before the USS F-67 mission for the Space Force. This particular Falcon Heavy, the fifth one overall, is using both side boosters from the rockets for the fourth launch. The fourth launch was initially scheduled for late 2020, but it only happened on November 1st, 2022, when Falcon Heavy Flight 4 took off from the NASA Kennedy Space Center. Even though there was an unplanned 40-month break between missions, the U.S. Space Force said that Falcon Heavy's fourth launch was a great success. The day ended with the OneWeb launch from Cape Canaveral. This was SpaceX's second Space Coast launch of the year. The mission was to deliver more internet satellites for competitor OneWeb. And don't quickly forget that OneWeb is one of those companies that would have outshined SpaceX regarding internet coverage. But Elon quickly made the giant step and enacted strategies that will make the Starlink project be rated as the best in major cities of the world. So while OneWeb was still busy cranking out strategies that would work, Elon Musk got it right and took over the satellite network space. Now the Starlink is on its way to becoming one of the best in the world. And with this outlook, you will discover that Elon Musk, SpaceX founder, always wanted to be seen and rated as the best, or as they would say in our usual football slang, the great of all time in whatever he does. Most companies couldn't have imagined that by the early 2020s, SpaceX would be the leader in almost every major area of modern spaceflight, including satellites, rockets, private astronauts, and space station cargo. They also couldn't have imagined that SpaceX would beat Boeing to its first astronaut launch, or that NASA would put billions of dollars and trust in Starship instead of almost every major US aerospace company to return humans to the moon. Before you see a Starship fly into space, you should know that it can't go anywhere without 33 simultaneous firing of Raptor engines beneath the Booster 7. SpaceX's Test and Development Center in McGregor makes sure the Raptor 2 engine fires without exploding. Raptor is tested in 5 test bays. The tripod stand gives some of the best views of the Raptor's electric TVC thrust vector control system being tested and several engine restarts. There are a lot of people who are glad that SpaceX has set up shop in Boca Chica, but there are some who feel like the company is invading their space. When SpaceX first started building on the site in 2014, it had a much less grand plan for the area. It planned to build a private spaceport to launch its Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy rockets, which are much smaller. About 12 launches a year were planned to be done from the area. The company even told people nearby that they wouldn't need to wear earmuffs to protect their ears from heavy sounds emanating from the Raptor engine. In 2019, everything was different. That year, SpaceX started making its first Starship program prototype vehicle. The strange little vehicle, which would eventually be called Starhopper, was used to test out the company's new, powerful Raptor engine. SpaceX repeatedly sent the strange-looking machine a few hundred feet into the air and then put it back down again. These were called little hops, and they were done to show that they could launch and land the machine while controlling each land. But that was just the beginning. Ever since then, SpaceX has been going full speed ahead at Boca Chica, expanding the company's facility, building multiple tents and construction facilities, hiring tens of thousands of workers, and making up to 30 different Starship prototypes to get the Starship on the moon and Mars in our decade. Do you actually believe that SpaceX will land the Starship on Mars someday? Elon is supposed to have gotten everything to do so. They have even broke a record by completing its longest static fire test duration in the Booster 7. Click on the video to know everything about this.